welcome everyone to today's DataVox webinar, Averting Disaster, Keep Your Contact Center Working Safely, presented by Serenova. My name is Jessica and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this webinar through Cisco WebEx events, and the audio can be heard through your PC or by calling into the phone number listed and with the access provided in your confirmation email or calendar invite for this event. Today's webinar is being recorded on behalf of DataVox, and participation in this event indicates your consent to being included in that recording. All attendees will receive an email with a link to the completed recording 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you have questions for the presenters at any time during this presentation, you may submit those questions via the Q&A feature to the bottom right of your screen. This should already be turned on. Simply click Q&A and the text box will appear. Our panel will be responding to these questions throughout the presentation via text and will respond verbally at the conclusion of the presentation. If you are in need of support or have a question not pertaining to today's topic, please utilize the chat feature and I will be happy to assist you. This feature is separate from the Q&A feature and can be turned on by clicking the chat bubble in the lower center of your screen. Now that we have reviewed the features of this webinar, we would like to start off today's presentation with a few words from our VP of Managed Services at DataVox, David Wilson. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today I think it's more essential than ever that we stay in contact with our customers and make it easier for them to communicate with us. But unfortunately, I do know that a number of companies have realized that the business continuity plan that they have in place is not really working for them in the current environment. So I think in particular, we've seen a lot of companies struggle with their contact center capabilities. So I'm very pleased that we have Lance Redford here today from Serenova, one of our top cloud contact center providers here today, to help us make sure that we keep our contact centers working safely and avoid a disaster. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Lance. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And pull up my presentation for you. I just need an OK that you're able to see a couple of things here. The screen should have changed to another Serenova page, but also the Serenova story. Can I get a confirmation? Okay, perfect, fantastic. So, yes, every opportunity starts with a good story, right? And so, what I'd like to talk through today is not only about how to avoid disasters and crises during our time frame here, but also give you a little background on Serenova, as well as some of the things that we position as we talk about rapid response and really trying to react to what the market is doing right now and what the industries are asking for. So I'll kind of walk you down a journey for customer journey experiences, as well as talk about a rapid response program, try to do so effectively. So when you talk about a Serenova company, for example, where did we grow out of? And really what we've done is back in 2000, LiveOps was a contact center, or is a contact center still today, a BPO. And they looked at several contact center solutions, didn't find that was meeting their specific needs, created one on their own. And as many of you have been in the industry for a while, LiveOps has been very successful. 2015 comes along, they were acquired. There was a need for a new technology to be established. And so in 2016, Serenova came into play. And so as we move forward in the new type of architecture, we will utilize AWS, and I'll highlight that a little bit in some of the follow-up slides here. But for the most part, Omnichannel built out of microservices, being able to take advantage of real-time uptime capabilities, not so many maintenance windows, things of that nature. So the contact center piece that we offer today has been born out of a contact center industry. So it's something we continue from. So those are a lot of our origins. CX Engage is the name of that contact center platform. As we deal with the analysts and a variety of individuals within the industry, there were gaps that were identified, WFO being one of them. So as we think about a customer experience, not only is it the routing and the queuing and the reporting of the interactions that a consumer would make within a company, but also the agent's experience. So it's a total picture of what that would look like. We made an acquisition, Telstrat, for WFO, so focusing on the call recording and the screen recording and the agent scoring and things of that type of nature for quality management. Also was a gap for workforce management, so the forecasting and scheduling of those agents. So in December of last year, in 2019, we made an acquisition of ProScheduler. So now we're rounding out what that opportunity looks like in a contact center place. And then just recently in 2020, we actually had another acquisition. We merged with a video collaboration platform of Lifesize. So as we enter into the market for 2020, we're very excited about our integration, our one unified platforms, and you'll see more announcements come out. I believe in a couple of days there's the Lifesize opportunity here with DataVox. So we're very excited about that. So a little bit about our background and our journey. We were born out of a contact center. If anybody's been to any of the conferences in the last couple of years, most of those conversations have dealt with customer experience, right? The topics most at hand. And really, businesses aren't necessarily competing on what feature sets they have anymore, but really what is that customer's experience as they are interacted with. We can thank Disney and Nordstrom and Amazon for kind of melting all of those customer experiences across the many industries. So you're not just compared with who you're competing with, but as a global scale, what companies are doing customer experience well. And so as we kind of navigate through that, we really focused with the CX Engage platform along these lines of how can we meet those customer expectations. I think the biggest thing we hear most of the time is I had to repeat myself over and over, right? If you as a consumer had to call into an organization and you had to repeat, the information you just gave like 3 times ago, that's a little frustrating. So being able to bring technology to the agent's interface where they can identify who you are, have that great customer experience as far as they know what you've called about in the past, seeing what your history may have been, who you interacted with, and that's already predefined within their systems, that's a better customer experience. So we'll focus on that. As mentioned a little earlier, the 3 particular integrated unified platform solutions, CX Engage is the contact center, CXQM is the quality management piece, and then unified analytics, mainly reporting, and a lot of various reports, standardized reports come into play there, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. But it really is omnichannel customer experience that we're going to focus on, especially when you get into the rapid response activities, and I'll get into a couple of use cases for you. But really, being able to have an agent interface on one application and not have to jump from app to app to app in order to facilitate those many different ways in which a consumer would interact with them. So I'll focus on True Cloud. What does that actually mean? You hear a lot of cloud suppliers out there say, well, we're True Cloud, but yet there's some downloads that have to take place or maintenance hardware that has to be installed and things of that nature. So we focus on a few areas here. True Cloud piece is one of our strengths. The analytics piece, getting information out of the system, that global reach, and then scalability and resiliency, which is really beneficial for our current case of the COVID-19 pandemic that's taking place now and having to mobilize workforces. When I talk about True Cloud, we really mean there's no need for any downloads at this point. Really, we are out browser-based. So when you're talking about mobilizing a workforce, the fact that I could run on a Mac or a Windows machine doesn't really matter because we're actually utilizing browser technology to be able to engage that agent at that point, right? Enabling them to take interactions across your organization the same way they were when they were sitting within your walls, right? If you were a contact center that had the 3x3 cubicles and it's like warehouse environment, not everybody's like that, but that's traditionally what you think of when you think of a contact center. So trying to mobilize a specific workforce, move them into their home offices, not have to send a lot of hardware home with them, right? Being able to take advantage of technologies within the browsers, like WebRTC, for example, so a soft phone built into a Chrome or a Firefox type of browser, being able to have that same experience that they would have if they were sitting in your office. Being able to leverage new functionality immediately. Since it is cloud-based, we're taking care of most of those upgrades and maintenance opportunities, and really you're on the latest and greatest software. Those benefits, really, it's an improved economics, right? SaaS always turns into a CapEx versus an OpEx. You've probably heard that discussion over the past couple of years as more and more people are looking at cloud. The improved time to market, innovation and agility really do matter in the cloud, and we're able to do that quickly. And so being able to adjust to what the market's asking for. So this pandemic is a perfect example. The fact that everybody had to send everybody home, for the most part, or work for essential employees, those types of activities, a lot of flexibility came in, and we're able to open up opportunities for partners like DataVox to be able to talk about solution sets to help and really engage those customers that are needing help. The insightful analytics is an area where a lot more individuals are spending time, right? You usually talk about AI and what kind of information am I getting out of a solution set. We do have deep integrations in our system, and really at the end of the day, most people are like, well, what information can I get and what can I do with that data, right? So having the ability to access a lot of different types of information, whether you're aggregating from various systems into one view for those types of things, whether you're taking information and then inputting into your own business intelligence tools to do your analysis, right? There's a lot of opportunities, and you'll see more and more vendors and suppliers have flexibility and insight into what that data actually can provide for you. But in our system natively, having a number of standard reports, so there's not a lot of customization that has to take place, but yet when there's a need for customization, making it easy for the company to facilitate on their own, not requiring multiple managed services is something that has really been appealing to a lot of our customer base. The global reach I mentioned a little earlier, since we are utilizing AWS, we have a global reach. We have many customers that have contact centers in multiple countries and multiple languages. And so this is one of the reasons why a lot of people do look for Serenova, is the fact that not only North America, but worldwide, I have a lot of influence and ability to deliver services in those regions. I think the biggest thing for cloud, and especially during this keeping people working from home, is the scalability and resiliency. Excuse me. So when we're talking about scalability in a SaaS model, really it's a pay for what you use, right? So I may start out with 10 people working from home. It's working really well. I can scale up to 100, maybe into the thousands if I need to. But that's something I can control as a company, as a business. I can control that myself within the software that we provide. So you're scaling up and down based upon the needs. You're only paying for who's taking the interactions, right? So really, when you talk about cost savings or try to find areas where you can become the most efficient in your spending, this is an area that you can control from a customer perspective. AWS helps out in the resiliency piece because there's multiple availability zones. And I can tell you that we don't need to take down the solution for maintenance opportunities. I can perform maintenance while we're up and running due to the multi-tenanted and microservices environment in which we facilitate. So it's new software on AWS, taking advantage of those availability regions so your downtime is minimized, if there's any at all. And also the fact that wherever AWS is, we can be. It makes it a pretty simple solution for us. So the scalability is huge for us. You're not having to maximize the maximum amount of agents and pay for that capacity like you do in a prem world, but in the cloud world, you're really only paying for what you're utilizing. So it makes it pretty simple. So when we talk about COVID-19 and rapid response activities and how we react to those things, this is a very easy solution to be able to walk and mitigate risk. I talked a little bit about the omnichannel piece. It's very important, especially in the customer experience, especially if you're going to do it in an effective manner, that as a customer is reaching out to you, no matter what type of channel or interaction that they're utilizing, it's critical that the agent is able to interface with the customer on their preferred channel. So as we look at a number of interactions, there might be voice that comes in, especially during this rapid response. Most people want to pick up the phone at this point and make a phone call and stay connected so they know there's a live body on the other end. But yet even those digital channels can come into play. So as the dynamics and the demographics change, you need to be able to change as well from a contact center perspective. So we talk about any channel, any agent. And so being able to reciprocate the connectivity piece or the interaction on the same channel that someone is preferring to interface with a company on, it's pretty important. So as we look through unification and why we want to unify everything on one solution set, obviously it gives you the most meaningful and actionable information. We're enabling that agent to deliver better customer experiences because everything's being reported and driven through that one interface. So we're giving decision makers the best information so they can drive results, allowing those agents to have that information at their fingertips. And I do have a screenshot of one of our solution sets. So I'll pull that up for you really quickly. So when we talk about a unified interface, this is a browser window. And there's a lot of information that can be offered out to the agent. And in this screenshot on the left-hand side, there are multiple channels that are being interfaced with. So I'm not having to jump around a variety of applications and get lost on particular screens. This is one screen, it's one browser window. I've got a call there at the top, I've got a chat, I've got an email, and I have a SMS, it looks like there at the bottom. So the agent is able to jump around to the various channels and interact with them in the same window. Also at the top, all the call control is located there. So once again, if I'm using my soft phone through WebRTC, and even if I have my hard phone on my desk, I'm actually having the call control done through the interface. In that middle section at the top where it says Mr. Bill Parsons, looks like we are on the chat. I've got opportunities to see and give visibility to what's happening within that interaction to the agent. So I've got queuing information. I know what that chat treatment's going to be like, how long they've been in the queue, what their wait time was, right? These are pieces of information that I can populate and educate the agent on. What's also being displayed in the middle of the screen is messaging templates. These are predetermined templates with messages for maybe frequently asked questions, so an agent doesn't necessarily have to type everything in fresh, right? It's a matter of a drop-down screen to grab whatever they need and to help to facilitate what the problem might be or whatever they're trying to solve, right? They're providing that better experience. On the right-hand side, we're showing customer history. And in this particular case, this customer had interacted with the solution earlier. It looks like they gave a customer satisfaction score there at the top, about 75%. And in this case, it was a phone call. So I want to listen to the audio recording, right? It's already embedded within that interface right there. So I've got information that can populate in a CRM style type of a delivery. I have historical information, so I can, as an agent, easily view when the last time they've interacted with me and also what other agents they may have interacted with. And then if you look at the bottom middle, there's a notes untitled interaction section really for dispositioning. So as I'm interfacing with this particular item from an agent perspective, I've got visibility into the interaction that's taking place. I see the treatment. I have easy tools to be able to facilitate out of that one screen. I've got historical information on that particular customer that's interfacing with me, and I have the ability to add notes as well as disposition. What that call is all done within the same interface. And so being able to identify pieces of information very quickly through a browser setting, not anything that's been downloaded to my laptop or my computer, but actually have an internet connection, get to a browser, log in with some security credentials, and I'm able to see this information very quickly. So when we talk about rapid response, getting someone mobilized, this is an area where we excel. Also, I should mention at the bottom of that screen, on the right-hand side, we have some pieces of information about the queue and some of the behaviors that the agent's done as well. So there's total visibility to the agent, and they don't have to be sitting in an office looking at a wallboard to find out how they're trending or tracking what some of those key performance indicators are. We do have a very robust partner ecosystem. Many of the customers that we have are very interested in how we can interface with existing systems that they have. We do have an open API set. So as we're looking at CRMs, for example, we have out-of-the-box solutions for Salesforce and Zendesk and Microsoft Dynamics. A lot of companies have their own homegrown built systems. So depending on how they want to interface or what we're trying to populate for them or what information we're trying to pull into our solution, maybe for call routing purposes or something of that nature, really utilizing a RESTful API is the way we would do that. WFO, right? You've seen several partners up there. I just mentioned a little earlier that we acquired a WFO company, also a WFM. So we do have opportunities natively that we can facilitate as well as with a partnership. So we're very flexible. There are many customers out there that want to continue to utilize what they have, and they just need to replace their contact center solution. We have a way to do that to mitigate risk and to make sure that we can continue forward with what they're utilizing. So as far as a partner ecosystem is concerned, we're very partner friendly. We like to work with partners, and we have ways in which we can facilitate those types of things. So it is a full functional contact center solution, whether we're doing things natively or we also have those capabilities to do things through third parties as listed. So how does it work? So in this example, we're going to kind of walk through what a customer would experience and then how an agent would be initiated. So my customer's up in that upper right-hand corner. My customer's making a phone call at this point. We're sending an API over to AWS where the Serenova CX Engage is housed and maintained and operated. So through a series of APIs, we're going to give instruction on what that interaction should look like. The other thing that's taking place here is we're also sending that instruction down to the desktop on the left-hand side so that the agent's experience is also moderated by or Serenova, from the cloud. And then the call is being delivered, whether we're running it through a private network, there's some examples of WebRTC, or even the hosted or premise PBX that's existing. We are an over-the-top solution, so we don't have to rip and replace everything out all of the time. And one of the ways in which a lot of companies are interested in this is the fact that maybe through acquisition, they've acquired many different companies, and there is a disparate solution in each one, maybe Avaya, maybe Cisco, maybe RingCentral, maybe Fuse, right? They may have these various PBX providers in those scenarios, but they need to standardize on their contact center. So the fact that we can ride over the top of those existing PBXs helps mitigate the risk of having to rip everything out, and it enables that mobility that we talked about a little earlier. What industries do we play well in?
For a second. Mark, do you mind jumping in for us? Mark, I think you're still muted. Sorry about that.
Sure. Do you have his slides? Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Mark, I can hear you.
Thank you. So let's see. Let me pull up those slides. I did not have them up. 1 second. I don't know that I have a copy of these slides. Robbie, do you have these slides?
Okay, can you hear me now?
There's Lance. There we go. We have Lance back.
Yay.
I'm sorry. I was just cruising right along. I didn't hear anything pop off or anything. So, Jessica, are you there?
Yes. There we go. Okay. Glad to have you back. So sorry about that.
It's crazy.
Well, it happens. I know these webinars seem to be a little overloaded, so we can get right back on if you'd like to share your screen here.
Yep, I just need it to be illuminated so I can share.
Yeah,
All right.
there we go.
Perfect. Let me know when you can see the screen again. And
Yes, you are sharing.
We see your web, your
Okay.
browser.
There we go.
There you go.
okay, so I'm not sure where I cut off. Can somebody update me, please?
You had just opened this slide, Lance, and we didn't hear anything from there.
Okay. Well, that was probably my best work that you missed. But actually, what I was focusing on here was the top 4 areas here: healthcare, financial, high tech, or help desk types, as well as retail. Because as people are asking us, where do you play best? These are the 4 areas that we focused on over the last year. But we can actually, any interactions across any industry, we can help facilitate. So if you've got questions on specific pieces of industry, we can help out there, especially around our security pieces. Finance and healthcare are usually where we're mainly getting asked about. Okay. So what is driving that need for rapid deployment? And as you know, in the industry, COVID-19, I've referred to it several times, has really changed the way in which we're doing things. Moving people to their homes, social distancing, trying to engage customers and keep the experience up where you typically see it while people are sitting in the contact centers, for example. But what we're finding is that cloud is pretty much the only way to support those contact centers. So I have a neighbor down the street. He runs a prem shop, and it's been 3 weeks now since they've been mandated to go to their homes, and he still doesn't have everybody established in their home offices just yet. Whereas, with the cloud, it'd been a little easier. So he and I are having a conversation later. Supporting the work from home, right? This is where it's been mandated. You must move your agents to your work from home model. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And then the ability to burst the contact center to support those volume spikes. So I've got a couple of examples here where those volumes have spiked up in the hundreds of thousands, and what those interactions have looked like over the past few weeks when this pandemic has been, influencing our economy. So the rapid response program, the way in which we have it delivered today is that there's a 48-hour remote rapid deployment, meaning taking a contact center and having it stood up in 2 days, essentially. We've had great success with this. Obviously, the program is designed specifically for voice only first, as we're moving throughout that interaction. But we had a 500+ remote agent contact center for a really large government agency respond to our offer as the outbreak has occurred, and they've already handled over 150,000 calls. I think that was last week sometime when that number, and it's grown since then. Plus, we had 1,000+ agent count remote center on a top healthcare company that were on legacy on-premise technology, and we had those guys up in I think 2 days. But it was really interesting on the contracting, how fast we were able to do the contracting options. So month to month with a 30-day notice to drop it, 12 month with a 60-day opt-out, normal contracting in terms with rapid deployment, and then we had special contracting for 500+ seats. So if you have any of those needs, we're able to accommodate those. And we're very flexible during this timeline, just for the fact that we're trying to help out wherever we can and help you become successful and get those companies up and running very quickly. As far as the use case is concerned, I talked about that 1,000-seat contact center. Now, obviously, the 2 that I mentioned was 500 and 1,000 seats. Not every one of the customers we have is over that number, right? We have several in the hundreds and even in, down 50, 25, right? Many different types of numbers of contact centers. But this one particularly was very fast acting. So they had disparate systems, right? They're all premises. None of them could offer any of the remote worker situations. COVID-19 forced them to move their agents home. I mentioned that a couple of times. The initial request was to just equip the clinical teams so they could pre-authorize insurance coverage. So the requirements were pretty simple, right? We had a simple voice queues. There were about 3 of those we needed to start with. Now that they're onboarded and they're operating, right, they're continuing to grow that out themselves. to facilitate other demands that they might have. But in this first 2 days, in this timeline, they needed just those 3 queues to start with, just to keep the doors open and keep business flowing. We're now hosting in 10 different cities for those interactions. The speed of deployment, it was under 48 hours, but we got the call, I think it was noon on Friday, that's listed here on the slide. By 3 p.m., we had a discovery call once we got to the right people to be able to facilitate those calls. And then by Saturday morning, we had their tenants stood up, which meant the platform was ready for them to start to test and do their UA testing before they turned it live. So very quick deployment, voice only at that particular time. So what were they able to do for the benefits? They were able to move those agents home. There's no interruption of their services for their patients. The business continuity plans were put into place. They didn't need to pay for upgrades or maintain that hardware moving forward because it was cloud-based. So, forward a couple of weeks now, their agent count's up, their customer interaction count is up, and now they're talking to us about prolonging past the COVID-19 pandemic piece. So they've really made a difference in the way in which they've been able to engage and still continue to provide that customer experience as well as the agent experience with their customer base. And that's all I had to prepare for today. Now, how about Jessica, let's turn it over for some questions and answers.
Okay, great. I will direct this over to Lonnie and Mark and Robert. Do we see any Q&A coming through? Anything you see on your end?
Just have a couple so far, and please feel free to add additional. Mark, I have a question that would be good for you to answer. Does the CX Engage product work on all web browsers?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it does work on all web browsers. So we are browser agnostic, with the exception of voice delivery over web RTC, which is a great option and always there. That requires a web RTC enabled browser. So we take advantage of the technology in the browser to deliver that voice call. And that would be a browser like Firefox or Chrome, for example.
Great. One more to ask to Robbie. Robbie, and Robbie is our sales rep on this call. Robbie, the question is, for this rapid response or any other questions around the cloud contact center product, who would I reach out to for this?
Yeah, good question. So what you'll want to do is reach out to DataVox. David Wilson will be your direct point of contact, and what he'll do is get you in touch with an account executive at DataVox. What they'll do next regarding next steps would be they'll go ahead and reach out to Serenova, and we'll engage the appropriate resource.
Great. Have another one coming in just now. And Mark, maybe you can answer this one. How easy is it to program or change my IVR menu when needed?
It's very easy. So we have a very easy to use drag and drop tool called Flow. And all you do is drag and drop. You make menu selections using recorded media or text to speech. And we support over 20 languages and dialects for text to speech. So it's a very robust engine, very easy to change, and includes things like business hours. So if you need certain messaging at certain times, you can add that as well. And again, it's very easy. The platform is all permissions based. So who can change it is up to you, and you control that. Thank you.
Mark, another question. Do you have a minimum number of agents?
I'm going to hand that one off to Robbie to answer.
We do not have a minimum. So if for example, we have a few of the rapid response organizations that have come to us that had to downsize, and they needed 2 to 3 agents. And again, we were able to help them out, get them up and running in 48 hours. So to answer the question, no, we do not have a minimum.
Great. How quickly can you add agents?
You can add agents.
Mark?
Sorry about that. This is done through the user interface. So anybody who has permission, like a supervisor or an administrator, would be able to add users at any given time. Very easy to do, and you can add the skills to them, and they can be up and running in no time at all. And you can even add agents ahead of time and keep them disabled. And when you want to enable them, all you have to do is flip a little slider, and they're enabled. So you can even be prepared for things like an emergency. We have customers who will load agents that don't work on the contact center on a day in and day out basis, but when they have spikes or seasonal or emergencies, they can activate them at a moment's notice. So they take the time to do that in a non-emergency situation. On a day-to-day basis, just as you see fit.
Can I use my existing IP phones, or do I have to use a soft phone?
You can use your existing IP phones. So if you're using your IP phones, they would register to your controller, and then we would just deliver it to your PBX. So we're PBX agnostic. We're taking the ACD. So we're going to route those calls down to your PBX, which needs to be SIP enabled, and then you would then deliver that to the individual extensions, be it a soft phone, a Teams phone, or a desk phone, for example.
Okay. Another question probably for you, Mark. Can I set up a SIP trunk directly from my company to Serenova to accept the ID numbers, et cetera?
You can, absolutely.
Great.
We can do SIP over a dedicated trunk like MPLS, or we could do SIP over the internet. It's really up to you, and that SIP can come in from anywhere, be it your PBX or your provider. So a lot of flexibility in that telecommunications model.
Okay. Another question here around support. Robbie, what does my support look like from Serenova?
Yeah, good question. So what will happen is once you sign up with Serenova, you'll get a customer success manager, and they will be your direct point of contact if you need to make any changes, have any questions, whatever it may be. So you will have a direct point of contact, and they will be available 24/7.
Great. And one thing I'll note too, for anybody on the line that would be reaching out to their DataVox representative or even David, DataVox does use Serenova, so they would be a great resource to ask how it's been working for them. And it looks
exactly.
like, oh, go ahead, Robbie.
I was just going to mention, and since DataVox obviously will be the partner that you'll be reaching out to directly, what you'll want to do is if you do have support questions as well, you can always reach out to DataVox and they can reach out to us. So you do have an extra layer of support as well.
Great. One more question, Mark. Can I make changes myself to scripts, or do I have to go through support for everything?
So you can make those changes yourself. So two things to note about our platform. We make our platform self-service to you, the purchaser of the product. So if you use CX Engage, it is self-service for you to do everything from soup to nuts. Add agents, add queues, add skills, add groups, change, remove. Same thing with flows, media files. All of that is so that you can be self-service and not have to depend on us. If you want to depend on us, that option is available as well. In addition to being self-service for you to use the platform is also designed to be self-service for your customers calling in. So for example, if someone called in and needed to check a due date or balance on a statement, they could do that through the IVR with integration. So we can integrate to back-end systems like Salesforce, Zendesk, ServiceNow. There's a variety of ways to integrate to be able to use that information in your database to then provide that to your clients. And that's where text-to-speech comes in handy. So it's very self-service oriented.
Great. Looking to see if there's somewhere that pops in. I think those are all of the questions that we have for now. I will turn it back over to Jessica.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. Just double checking. Yeah, I think we did get all those questions. Okay, well, thank you to the Serenova team and to Lance. And also we want to thank all of you for joining today's webinar. As a reminder, the recording link for today's webinar will be available 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you enjoyed today's session and would like to hear more, we do offer new webinars weekly. Please check our DataVox website for more information on upcoming sessions. And as always, we would love to hear your feedback on our events. Once this webinar has ended, you will be redirected to a survey page. If you could please take a moment to complete the survey before closing out your browser, we would greatly appreciate it. That concludes our session for today. Thank you again to Lance for a great presentation, to Serenova for joining us, and thank you all again for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everybody.